In the heart of a burning forest, a sorcerer whispers forbidden spells and awakens the Orc King, who rises astride a massive white bear, his war cry shaking the sky. From the soil, an endless army of orcs claws its way back to life, armored and savage like shadows torn from the Lord of the Rings. The world watches in terror as cities fall one after another, powerless against this ancient fury. Just as the Orc King declares the earth his new throne, a thunderclap splits the clouds. Thor, Superman, Hulk, Iron Man, and Wonder Woman descend together. The clash begins not as a battle, but as the war to decide who truly rules the earth. The awakening of the Orc King. The night forest was alive with whispers. Trees bent unnaturally, their roots curling like claws, and the air smelled of ash and lightning. At the very center, inside a broken circle of ancient stone, a lone sorcerer knelt, his fingers stained with blood and soil. He spoke in a tongue older than mankind, every word striking the ground like thunder. The earth trembled, as though it wanted to resist, but it was too late. The ground split open with a roar. From beneath the soil rose a giant figure, armor clinging to his massive frame, fangs dripping with old rage. His crown was forged from jagged bone, his eyes glowing red like molten fire. And at his side, chained in runes, was a creature unseen by mortals for thousands of years. A colossal white bear, taller than trees, fur glowing under the moonlight. The sorcerer screamed the final word. "Rise, Orc King." The Orc King's chest heaved, and the forest shook with his first breath in 1,000 years. He slammed his blade into the ground. Around him, hundreds and thousands of skeletal hands burst from the dirt. Dead warriors pulled themselves free, flesh knitting over bone, armor sealing onto their bodies. An Orc army, ancient and endless, stood once more, their snarls echoing like drums of war. The sorcerer fell to his knees, trembling. "The world is yours to conquer, my king. No weapon of man can stop you." The Orc King mounted his white bear, eyes sweeping the horizon. His voice rolled like a storm. "Then we march. Not a forest, not a city, not a soul shall stand when my riders cross the earth." And they did. The first city falls. By sunrise, the orc horde poured out of the woods like a tidal wave of steel and fury. Villages burned before anyone could scream. Their white bear riders crushed tanks beneath claw and fong. Cities collapsed as flaming spears darkened the skies. Soldiers tried, jets fired missiles, but nothing pierced the enchanted armor of the Orc King's legions. The white bear roared, swatting helicopters from the air like insects. The world governments panicked. News anchors cried on live broadcasts. In a matter of days, 3 nations were swallowed whole. The Orc King planted his banner atop their ruins, a bleeding crown nailed to a tree. His message was clear: Earth was no longer free. The call for heroes. But Earth was not unprotected. Far above the atmosphere, inside a hidden orbital watch station, alarms blared. Satellites tracked the horde, maps turning red with every city lost. The signal went out. Heroes answered. In the heart of Metropolis, Superman soared into the sky, his eyes burning with fury at the devastation below. Across Asgard's gate, Thor raised Mjolnir, thunder roaring in answer. In New York, Iron Man locked his new nanotech suit, systems humming as Friday reported. Orc Army, million strong. Leader mounted on a bear. Tony smirked, but it didn't hide the unease in his eyes. In Themyscira, Wonder Woman sharpened her sword, whispering a prayer to Athena. And in a hidden lab, Bruce Banner clenched his fists as green veins pulsed. The Hulk was ready. The world needed not soldiers, but gods. And they were coming. Clash of Legends. The first confrontation erupted in the ruins of Warsaw. The Orc King's army had already stormed the city center, their banners draped across burning skyscrapers. White bear riders thundered through the streets, crushing cars like toys. Civilians fled, screams echoing between collapsed buildings. Then the clouds cracked. A bolt of lightning split the battlefield, hurling dozens of orcs aside. Thor landed in the rubble, Mjolnir blazing. "Monster," he growled at the Orc King. "You face gods now." Before the orcs could charge, a red and blue streak blurred through the sky. Superman smashed into the ground, creating a shockwave that toppled an entire battalion. His eyes glowed like suns. "This ends here." From above, hundreds of repulsor beams cut through the smoke. Iron Man hovered, drones swarming at his sides, locking onto white bear riders. "Yeah, I don't usually do medieval cosplay, but I'll make an exception." Then the ground trembled. The Hulk burst through a wall of flame, roaring louder than the white bear itself, smashing 5 orcs into the pavement with a single swing. Wonder Woman appeared in a streak of gold, shield raised, slicing through spears like paper. For the first time, the Orc King smiled. "Earth's champions," he said, voice carrying above the chaos. He raised his sword, fire crackling across its edge. "Good. I wanted the challenge." The white bear reared up, its roar shaking skyscraper glass. The orc horde surged forward like a flood. And with that, the greatest war Earth had ever seen began. The siege of Warsaw. The battlefield burned like the end of the world. Thor swung Mjolnir in a circle, lightning crackling across the sky, hurling orc riders into twisted heaps. Superman streaked through the air, punching one beast into the stratosphere. The Hulk smashed into the white bear, claws raking against his skin as buildings collapsed around them. Iron Man's drones exploded midair as enchanted spears pierced their cores, and Wonder Woman danced through the chaos, her blade flashing with divine fire. But for every orc that fell, 10 more rose. The Orc King's blade carved arcs of crimson light, cleaving cars in half, cutting through steel like silk. Mounted atop his massive bear, he towered above the heroes, unshaken, unstoppable. "Your world is mine," he roared. His voice shook the glass from towers still standing. Superman charged first. He rammed into the bear's chest with enough force to topple a mountain. The creature barely staggered. With a roar, the bear swiped its paw, hurling Superman through 3 skyscrapers. "Clark!" Wonder Woman shouted, but there was no time. The bear lunged for her next, jaws wide, snapping down with the force of an avalanche. At the last second, Hulk leapt, grabbing its muzzle and prying it open with raw rage. Muscles tore, blood sprayed, but Hulk screamed louder. "Rah!" The Orc King dismounted, sword in hand, his eyes locked on Thor. "So you are a god," the king sneered. "Then bleed like one." Their clash split the ground. Mjolnir met the cursed blade, lightning against fire, shaking the entire city. The shockwave shattered every window for miles. Iron Man dodged falling rubble, firing missiles at the orc horde. "Okay, this is officially above my pay grade." His HUD blinked red as thousands of orc signatures swarmed the streets. He fired a repulsor beam straight into the bear's eye. The beast roared, blinded, but slammed its paw into the pavement so hard the shockwave flipped tanks. Superman shot back into the fray, eyes glowing, ripping through the horde like a comet. "We can't hold them here," he shouted. Wonder Woman's shield cracked under the Orc King's strike. Sparks flew as she fell to one knee. The king kicked her across the rubble, laughing. "So this is Earth's hope?" Then lightning struck again. Thor, bleeding but unyielding, raised Mjolnir high. The storm answered with a fury unseen in centuries. The white bear howled as electricity coursed through its body. But the Orc King only grew stronger. His blade absorbed the lightning, pulsing brighter. He grinned. "Fool, your storm feeds me." Thor's face hardened. "Then you'll choke on it." The turning point. The battle dragged for hours. For every heroic strike, the orcs countered with savage numbers. Civilians were trapped under rubble, their screams mixing with war cries. The heroes were bleeding, exhausted. Superman staggered, chest heaving. Hulk was pinned under the bear's paw, struggling to push it off. Iron Man's suit sparked, his systems collapsing. Wonder Woman's shield was shattered. Thor's arm dripped blood, his godly strength waning. The Orc King raised his blade above Thor's throat. "Kneel, or watch this world burn." And for the first time in years, the gods of Earth faltered. But Superman crawled from the wreckage, his cape torn, his eyes blazing. He clenched his fists, veins glowing with solar fire. "We don't kneel," he growled. He launched upward, punching the Orc King so hard the shockwave cracked the ground for miles. The king flew back, slamming through a dozen buildings, his bear roaring in fury. The heroes regrouped, bloody, broken, but unbowed. Round 2. Iron Man wheezed, his mask half broken. Hulk tore himself free, roaring louder than ever. "Hulk! Smash King!" And with that, the second wave of the war began. The duels of Warsaw. The city was gone. Nothing but fire, rubble, and the screams of survivors echoing through smoke-filled streets. Above it all, the Orc King stood on the back of his white bear, his sword glowing like a burning star. Around him, his horde roared, an endless sea of steel and rage. And before him, bloodied but unbroken, stood Earth's mightiest heroes. Thor gripped Mjolnir, sparks crawling over his torn armor. Superman's cape hung in tatters, his fists trembling with fury. Iron Man's suit was scorched and sputtering, nanotech barely holding together. Wonder Woman's shield was gone, but her sword still gleamed with godly fire. Hulk pounded the ground, roaring, his skin marked with claw scars. The city held its breath. The next strike would decide everything. Superman versus the Orc King. With a deafening boom, Superman launched himself straight at the Orc King. Their collision ripped the air apart, a shockwave tearing through the battlefield. The king swung his blade, sparks bursting as it clashed against Superman's fists. "You are strong," the king snarled, pressing forward. "But strength alone does not win wars." Superman's eyes burned red. "I'm not alone." He blasted heat vision straight into the king's chest, forcing him back. But the king twisted, his blade drinking in the energy like fire into steel. He laughed. "Even the sun feeds me." Superman froze. The king's armor glowed brighter, his strikes heavier. The realization hit like a knife. Every element, every force, every storm fueled him. He wasn't just unstoppable. He was evolving. Hulk versus the White Bear. The ground cracked open as Hulk rammed into the White Bear again, locking fists with claws the size of cars. The beast snarled, blood dripping from its blinded eye. Its roar shook the ruins, but Hulk roared louder, teeth clenched, muscles exploding with rage. Hulk, strongest. With a sickening crunch, Hulk lifted the bear and slammed it through an entire skyscraper. The building collapsed in a cloud of dust, burying them both. For a moment, silence. Then the ground erupted, Hulk climbing from rubble, dragging the bear by its throat. But the beast was still alive, still thrashing, its rage matching his. Their battle became a storm of roars, fists, and claws, echoing like titans from another world. Wonder Woman versus the Horde. On the ground, Wonder Woman faced wave after wave of white bear riders. Her sword flashed, each strike dropping 10 enemies at once, golden lasso blazing as it whipped through armor and bone. Blood splattered her face, but her eyes were fire. "You will not touch this world," she shouted, cutting through an orc captain, shieldless but unyielding. She spun, cleaving through a rider's neck, leaping onto another's bear, and driving her blade through its skull. Her movements were poetry and death, unstoppable, divine. Still, the horde pressed on. For every hunter she cut down, more came. She gritted her teeth. "Then I will kill them all." Iron Man's last stand. Above, Iron Man pushed his failing suit past its limits. Alarms screamed, systems collapsing. His HUD flickered red, power critical. Suit integrity 9%. Yeah, I hear you," Tony muttered, dodging another enchanted spear. He deployed his last set of drones, sending them diving into the horde in suicidal bursts of fire. Explosions shook the battlefield, clearing space around Wonder Woman. "Stark," she shouted. He hovered, smoke trailing, chest plate cracked. "Don't thank me yet. I'm not done being stupid." With a grin, he dove straight toward the Orc King. The shocking twist. Superman staggered back, chest heaving, as the Orc King raised his blade for a killing blow. Suddenly, A streak of red and gold slammed into the king's chest. Iron Man's entire suit wrapped around the blade, locking it. Energy flared as the sword tried to absorb the arc reactor's power. "Not today," Tony growled. The Orc King snarled, trying to shake him off. Sparks erupted. The suit began tearing itself apart. "Stark, no," Thor roared. Tony looked at Superman, his mask half gone, his eyes tired but defiant. Big Blue hit him with everything. Superman's eyes lit like stars. He understood. With a scream, Superman unleashed his full heat vision, pouring it into the sword. The king howled, his armor swelling with unstable energy. Iron Man held on, burning alive inside the collapsing suit. "Come on, blow." And then it happened. The sword cracked. The energy backfired. A shockwave ripped across Warsaw, hurling heroes and orcs alike into the ruins. When the dust cleared, the Orc King stood on one knee, his blade shattered, armor smoking. His white bear roared in pain, limping from its wounds. Iron Man lay in the rubble, motionless. Superman's voice cracked. "Tony." The Orc King rose again, still alive, eyes blazing with hate. "This changes nothing. I will not fall." But for the first time, his army hesitated. The heroes, battered and broken, pulled themselves to their feet. Thor tightened his grip on Mjolnir. Wonder Woman raised her blood-stained sword. Hulk dragged himself from the ruins, snarling. Superman stood tall, fists clenched. The war wasn't over, but the king had bled, and the world had hope. The last stand. The sky over Warsaw burned red. Smoke rose like mountains, and the ground trembled beneath the march of an army that refused to die. The Orc King stood battered but unbroken, shards of his blade still glowing in his hands. His white bear limped but roared, eyes burning with hate. Around them, the orc horde pounded their weapons against their shields, chanting for the end of Earth. And across the ruined battlefield, Earth's heroes rose one last time. Thor's arm bled freely, but Mjolnir still hummed with storms. Wonder Woman's armor was cracked, her shield gone, but her sword glowed like the wrath of gods. Hulk's chest was scarred, his roar rasping, but his fury had only grown. Superman hovered above the rubble, cape shredded, his eyes burning like suns. Beside them, Iron Man lay motionless in the ruins. His sacrifice had cracked the Orc King's blade, but the man inside the suit had not moved since. The heroes had no choice. This was the last stand. Superman versus the king. The Orc King roared, charging forward with unnatural speed. Superman met him midair, fists colliding with shattered steel. Their blows shook the ground, each strike breaking the sound barrier. The king's strength seemed endless, every strike fueled by the chaos of battle itself. "You can't win," the king bellowed, slamming Superman into the earth hard enough to carve a crater. Superman's voice thundered back as he rose, bleeding but unyielding. "Then I'll die standing." He flew upward, fists glowing with solar fire, and struck the king with a blow that cracked the heavens. Hulk versus the bear. Across the ruins, Hulk tore himself free of rubble and rammed into the white bear again. They rolled like earthquakes through collapsing buildings, each strike louder than thunder. The bear slashed across Hulk's chest, blood spraying, but Hulk only roared harder. Puny bear. With a surge of rage, Hulk lifted the beast and smashed it against the ground again and again until the streets caved in. The bear clawed back, refusing to die, but Hulk bit down on its throat and tore free a roar that silenced even the horde. The beast collapsed, finally still. Hulk stood over it, chest heaving, green skin drenched in blood. Hulk strongest. Wonder Woman and Thor versus the horde. While Superman fought the king and Hulk crushed the bear, Wonder Woman and Thor waded into the horde. Orc riders crashed against them like waves, but neither faltered. Thor hurled Mjolnir, splitting the army with storms, pulling lightning down like rivers of fire. Wonder Woman's sword carved through steel and flesh alike, every swing a blur of gold. Side by side, they fought like gods, unrelenting. The orcs began to falter. For the first time, the horde broke rank. The end of the king. The Orc King staggered, his armor shattered, his blade in pieces. Superman, face bloodied, floated above him. "It's over." The king spat blood, laughing. "Fool! Even broken, I will rise again. My army is eternal. Your kind is weak." But before he could strike again, a beam of blue light shot across the battlefield. The heroes froze. Everyone turned. Iron Man stood. His armor was torn, sparking, barely holding together. But in his chest, the reactor blazed brighter than ever. "Hey, Boneface," Tony rasped, coughing blood but smirking. "Weak this." He raised his hand, palm glowing. "Avengers, last play." Superman nodded, understanding instantly. Thor raised Mjolnir. Wonder Woman lifted her sword. Hulk roared. Their powers converged. Lightning, heat vision, divine fire, raw rage, into Iron Man's chest reactor. Tony grinned one last time. Boom! The blast was blinding. A storm of godly power and human brilliance exploded outward, swallowing the Orc King and his horde in a wave of light that shook the earth itself. When the dust cleared, the battlefield was silent. The Orc King was gone. His horde was ash. His white bear lay still forever. And Iron Man's armor was empty. The silence after. The heroes stood among the ruins, their chests heavy, their eyes wet. Superman clenched his fists, jaw trembling. Thor lowered his head in respect. Wonder Woman whispered prayer. Hulk simply roared at the sky, his grief echoing for miles. The world was saved, but the cost was written in blood. And though the Orc King was destroyed, his words lingered in their minds. My army is eternal. The war was over, but the shadow of what might return had only just begun. Ashes and legends. The battlefield was silent. Smoke curled over the ruins of Warsaw, where towers had once reached for the sky. The white bear lay dead in the rubble, its massive frame unmoving, eyes glazed in eternal fury. Around it, the Orc King's horde had been reduced to ash, burned away in the storm of godly power that ended the war. The heroes stood among the destruction, bloodied but alive. Superman hovered just above the cracked streets, his chest rising with heavy breaths, eyes scanning for danger. Thor leaned on Mjolnir, his armor shredded, blood dripping onto the ground. Wonder Woman's sword still glowed, but her shoulders sagged from exhaustion. Hulk towered behind them, his skin cut and burned, chest heaving. And at the center of it all lay the remains of Iron Man's suit, broken and still. The arc reactor flickered faintly, like the last ember of fire. Thor lowered his head. He fought with the courage of 1,000 warriors. Wonder Woman knelt beside the cracked mask, brushing dirt from it with a trembling hand. He wasn't a god, but his heart was greater than any I have known. Hulk's growl rumbled low, filled with pain. Stark was Hulk's friend. Superman's jaw tightened, his voice raw. He saved us all. Without him, none of this would have ended. For a long moment, the world's mightiest heroes stood in silence. Even in victory, the weight of sacrifice crushed them, the shadow and the ashes. Thunder rolled above, though the skies were clear. Thor bent down, picking up a shard of the Orc King's blade, still humming with unnatural power. The edges were jagged, glowing faintly with red veins. His face hardened. "This is no ordinary steel," he said. "Even shattered, it still breathes with his curse." Superman frowned. If his weapon lives, then so does his magic. Wonder Woman's grip tightened on her sword. The Orc King may be gone, but the world is not safe. This war will echo for centuries. Hulk crushed a piece of broken armor in his hand until it cracked. If more come, Hulk smashed them too. Their words were steel, but each of them knew the truth. This was not an ending, only a pause. A hero remembered. The heroes carried what was left of Tony Stark's armor from the battlefield. They walked together through the ruins, not as gods, but as comrades. Behind them, the fires burned low, casting long shadows across the ground. Superman looked back once, his eyes wet. "We'll carry him with us. Always." Thor raised Mjolnir to the sky, lightning flashing in salute. A mortal who died with honor greater than kings. Wonder Woman whispered a final prayer. Hulk stayed silent, his grief echoing in the weight of his steps. Together, they disappeared into the smoke, the war behind them, but the memory eternal. The final ember. And in the ruins where the Orc King had fallen, buried beneath stone and flame, a single ember pulsed. It glowed brighter with every heartbeat, whispering with a voice that carried on the wind. My army is eternal. The ember cracked open, spilling light into the dark. Far across the stars, something stirred in answer. The war was won, but the shadow of the next had already begun.